Bangladesh, feeling so alive. Summer rhythms playing with a thrive. Go, 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 oh, shout it aloud. In the summer sun, we're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Brazil Ball, the podcast all about Brazilian football. There's been lots going on yet again in the week of Brazilian football. Action at the top and bottom of the table. Botafogo pulling clear and a pig's head on the pitch. Yes, all of that to come in today's episode. I'm here as ever with my co-host George. So let's get stuck into it. A bit of a mix-up there. Oh, no.
I thought you'd... I don't know what's going on now, but...
There's a bit of a mix-up with the music there. Sorry. So, as I was saying, lots to get into. I'm James. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host, George. And, lots to get into today, isn't there, George?
Yeah, there is, James. There's plenty to get into, as always. Like you said, top and bottom of the table. It's heating up now. But before we get going, I'd just like to ask you, como vai, James? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And we had some good news really this week, didn't we, George, for fans of the pod on Spotify and other such platforms. After a bit of a hiatus, we've finally been able to crack, or we thought we'd cracked the Spotify kind of code. We did get the last episode up, didn't we? We'll see if this one goes up, but we are, for now anyway, back up on other, or Spotify for sure, and other podcast platforms, aren't we?
Yeah, so if you don't want to watch on YouTube, if you don't want to watch us talking, our faces and things, you can just listen to purely audio. We're back on Spotify and I think Amazon Music as well, and also Samsung Podcasts, among other ones as well. If you just search Spotify on Spotify and the like, Talking Brazil Ball, you will see the new episodes up with the new logo and everything. Don't look on the old ones. The old ones are still up there, James, but the new ones will go under the Talking Brazil Ball with the new logo, the yellow logo. So look at that if you want to see it on a purely audio basis. And hopefully, like I said, this one will also be up on just audio, but it'll be definitely on YouTube. So yeah, remember to like it and subscribe, share it with all your friends if you want to, and whatever you want to do. We're going to get into some Talking Brazil Ball today.
Yeah, and we must apologise as well because we are a little bit later this week. Those who know Tuesday as Talking Brazil Ball Day will have been disappointed, and that was purely just because the game week was still going on up until this morning, actually Thursday morning. So that's the reason why we're coming a little bit late on. But before we do go through those fixtures, George, I know you've usually got a bit of a quiz, haven't you, to open the show with. Have you got one this week for us, or?
Yeah, of course I do, James. Yeah, I do actually. I've got it here. So, just as I would like to say, James, torsi mi tonzolelo. I've sprained my ankle actually, so I'm in a little bit of uncomfortable at the moment. But we're gonna get the show on anyway. So yeah. So I've got the quiz for you. It is a Copa do Brazil episode, James. It's a Talking Brazil Ball quiz of the Copa do Brazil. So with it being the final, obviously this week, my team Galo have decided to bottle it a little bit so far, but I'm not sure how much the actual first leg of it is to anything, actually. I think they seem to do it on a point system, which I don't know much about. But anyway, so basically, Galo and Flamengo, James, including this final, will have contested at least one of them in the last 4 finals of the Copa do Brazil. So Galo won it in 2021, Flamengo won it in 2022. We of course know Sao Paulo won it in 2023 last year. And of course, the two meet Galo and Flamengo, the final matchup being on Sunday, this coming Sunday. So what I want to know, James, is Galo won it in 2021. Who did they beat in that final, in that two-legged final? And also, Flamengo won it in 2022. Who did they beat in that final? Also, another answer I would like you to give is who is the most, in history, who's got the most wins of the Copa do Brasil?
Well, I don't know. The first two questions, I don't know. You're showing us up here with our lack of knowledge because I have no idea. Anything I would say would be a pure guess. It was obviously before our time in terms of talking Brazil ball. Could have been anybody. I don't know. Santos.
Galo beat PR in a two-legged final. And then Flamengo beat Corinthians in 2022. Obviously, Sao Paulo beat Flamengo. And the team that have won the most in history is Cruzeiro.
Cruzeiro. Yeah,
I think they've won 13, James. So, like I said, my team bottling a little bit, but I don't think the first leg worked. Do you know much about it, James? Because I've sort of read it can be on like a points sort of system. But
I have no idea what that would entail. Is it not just a standard kind of two-legged affair, basically?
No.
Whoever, if you win if you win after two legs, you've won.
I don't. I think it might be that, but I think I was reading something about points, sort of some kind of point system. So I don't know. Again,
what way? So what, you get 1 point for one goal? It is a point system basically, anyway, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah. But I think I was reading like it was a 6. Like Galo won it 6. I think 6-1 or something. But it said they won 6-0 on points or something like that. So I don't know what it is, but anybody let us know because no idea. But Galo are 3-1 down from the first leg, but
how many points is that?
Well, I don't know. I'll just have to wait and see what happens on Sunday. After the game. So who knows? But it was 3-1 from the first leg.
That sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I think it will just be a normal thing, but again, maybe you're right. Let's wait and see. You'd be gutted if you win the final 4-0 and you lose on some kind of points system. I don't know. That is. I think you're barking up the tree there.
Well, I don't know, but it's saying like Flamengo won this 2022. It said tied. It was 1-1 by all accounts on an aggregate score. Then it says tied 2-2 on points and equal on goal difference. And Flamengo won 6-5 on penalties. It's saying here. Well, no, in 2020, Palmeiras won 3-0 on aggregate potentially, but then it says Palmeiras won 6-0 on points. So
maybe it means. I don't know what it means, but anyway, let's steer away from that for now because it's you've caused some controversy with that quiz, and we're never going to get the answer until we know the answer. So let's move on, and let's do the results, Josh. So there were 10 games. There were 11 actually. Inter played Flamengo as well. Flamengo have had a very busy week. So you want to do a rundown of the fixtures, and then let's get into it.
Yeah, of course, James. So Internacional won, Flamengo won on Wednesday, 30th of October. On Saturday, 2nd of November, Fluminense 2, Grêmio 2, RB Bragantino 0, Cuiabá 0, Atletico PR 1, Vitória 2, Juventude 0, Fortaleza 3. Big win for Corinthians, James, 2-0 over Palmeiras. Into Wednesday, November the 6th, then Bahia 0, Sao Paulo 3, Botafogo 3, Vasco 0, Inter 2, Criciúma 0. And then, like you said, early hours of this morning, James, Gio 1, Galo 0, and Cruzeiro 0, Flamengo 1. The match day stretched over 4 days, I think it was. I think we were kicking us heels a bit, saying, "Come on, get on with it a little bit," you know. But there you go. What can you do? It's elongated at this time of year with the finals and everything going on. So we're just going to break that a little bit longer. I think next week is similar as well.
Yeah, we'll be with the cup final again. That points game. So let's do the games of the week then, George. You went down to the bottom of the table for your offering this week. I stayed I went for one which had big ramifications, as it turned out, at both ends of the table. But unfortunately for you, after a few weeks of kind of high scoring games of the week, you've reverted back to the goalless curse, haven't you? So you went with Red Bull Bragantino against Cuiabá, a really big game at the bottom of the table, and it turned out a goalless one again, didn't it? So how did you see this one? What was good about it? What conclusions can we draw about the relegation battle?
Well, I don't think many really, James. I mean, like you said, it was a massive game at the start proceedings. It proceeded to be, like you said, my kind of 0-0 curse again after a few weeks of having a bit of fun with a few goals. It's back to normal and a 0-0. Not a great deal, really, James. I'll probably have to wrap this one up pretty quickly. It was a pretty drab affair. I think Bragantino had the better of it. Plenty of shots in there for them. 18 shots, James, only 4 on target. Plenty of the possession. They'll probably be disappointed they didn't win this one, really, because I think Cuiabá are sitting ducks, really, now. They're just waiting for the bell to ring and for them to go down, basically. The 7 points adrift. For me, they'll definitely go down with only 6 games left, and it's a real missed opportunity for Bragantino to get themselves a bit further away from danger. They're only a point above PR as it stands now in the relegation zone. They're in 16th, PR in 17th. And it was just a drab affair, really, a 0-0. I think, it was obviously Seba's first game, wasn't it? But it just amounted to nothing. I think they've got another massive game on Saturday, James. It's a game they must win here against GO. I know GO seem to throw up a little bit of a curveball now and then, but I think it's games you should be winning, really, as you're going into the final knockings of the season. Cuiabá, as it is, like I said, they're no wins in 4 now. They're just Gio are having a little. Gio are having a little bit of a go. Cuiabá are definitely not doing that. They can't seem to score a goal, James. No goals in four games since the 2-0 win over Sao Paulo. They're just going down without a fight, really. And our man Pitta, he is without a goal, James, in 9 games now. He's on a real poor run of goalless games now, and it's just the season for me for Cuiabá just can't come quick enough. The end of it, really, get them relegated and start afresh. The manager, I don't think, was very happy with the first half of this game, and he actually changed it after half an hour. He whipped a couple of the lads off after just 32 minutes. And I don't think it stemmed the flow of the game, to be fair. It was very much Bragantino's game. They just couldn't get the goal, and ultimately they couldn't get the points that would have seen them far closer to safety than they are now. It's just a point, James, that I didn't actually realise, but we were harping on about him quite often in towards the start of the season. The man Helinho Junior, he's actually gone from Bragantino. I didn't realise, but he scored quite a number of goals towards the start of the season. He left in September. He went to Toluca in Mexico, so he's gone. In the door, maybe to replace him, it's a name that you will know, I'm sure, James, you will remember. Ex-Wolves player Ivan Calaviero, played for Fulham as well. He's through the door, so potential, replacement for Junio there, but he's done nothing. He came in September, so they really need to win against Gio. I think Cuiabá are down ultimately, James.
Yeah, no goals in 4 for Bragantino. Seabra, he'd probably be, I don't know, relatively happy in terms of something on the board for his first game. But thus, I mean, it's quite a kind couple of games to open. They'll certainly be looking for better against Gio. Maybe Cavallero will be the man to get the goals. Yeah, good, well spotted that. Helinho, we did speak about him a fair bit on the pod actually, and he seemed to be having a good season. He's relatively young. I mean, the Mexican league is a big league, isn't it? Very underappreciated, I think, in Europe. But, you know, it's a bit of a shame that he did look like he could be a player who might have a future in Europe, and maybe he still will. But you don't often see players coming from the Mexican league to Europe from the Liga MX. So a bit of a shame to lose him, and that has probably impacted them quite badly because he was a real creative spark for Bragantino. So it's difficult once you're in a relegation battle, even if you bring somebody in like Cavallero, who obviously has huge experience in better leagues, really. It's still difficult to get that kind of going in mid-season amidst a relegation battle. So we'll see if they can pick up. But Cuiabá, yeah, just they brought in the young guy, didn't they, Bernardo Franco, and it hasn't really taken off. I think that was about a last roll of the dice. I mean, you've written them off completely there, haven't you, George? What about Bragantino? I mean, you have been quite vocal in your hatred of Bragantino, I think, in terms of the way they've performed this season. And they've let themselves slip. Do you think they'll go still? I think you did pick them to stay up, I think. But I can't remember what you said last week.
I think I predict them to just stay up, but they do, for me, they deserve it, James. They deserve to go down. They're on a run of games. Like you said, they haven't scored for four games. They haven't won for about 9 games now, I think it is. So, and they've got that atrocious record of 3 wins in something like 21 league games. They deserve to go down, along with PR. It's not that I hate them, you know. It's just a thing that I believe that justice would be done if both of those two teams went down, because they shouldn't be in there, but they are, and it's because they've been on a horrendous run of form, which should see them relegated. As it is, Cuiabá definitely. I mean, I think you would agree, surely, that Cuiabá 7 points adrift now with 6 games to go, surely are gone. Like I said, Gio come up with some random result like every 3 or 4 games maybe, but it's not going to save them at all. They're 10 points adrift with 6 games to go. It's not going to happen for them. And I just think the other two for me that deserve it is RB and PR. But let's wait and see. It would be a real shame for me to see Juventude go, but again, you can say they've been in horrendous form the last 5 or 6 games, so it's difficult, isn't it? It's a real fight. It's a real fight. It really is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Juventude, I think it's been even longer than that. Perhaps that they've got, I think it's 6 now, or 6 or 7 they haven't won in. And I think the flip side of it is that, if Bragantino and PR do stay up, both of them, it's probably looking like it's going to be at it's going to mean that Juventude and probably Criciúma, you'd think, would maybe go down. And those two teams have fought so hard for most of the season and have a decent points tally at this point that it would seem a shame for them to go down. Like you said, Juventude, I think we both confidently predicted them to stay up only probably 5-6 weeks ago, and they've really just plummeted since then, and it doesn't look good for them at the minute at all. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. To be honest, I think the form of those two, inverted commas, bigger sides, or certainly richer sides, have really underperformed and would be deserving of going down. But that's not the way things work. So let's see how it pans out eventually. But yeah, big game coming for Bragantino. Cuiabá have Botafogo, and you'd think Botafogo will be looking at that with their eyes lighting up at this point. So there you go, a 0-0, which doesn't really help either team. But anything else from that game you wanted to cover, George, before we look at the Derby Paulista, which was relatively eventful?
Not really, James. I mean, I'm just going to end it with, up until my team, Galo in 10th, have really let themselves down over the last week or so. They're still in with a shot of getting relegated for me. The half of the division basically could could end up in the relegation zone if they're not careful. So, yeah, it's a real fight. There's 6 games to go. I can't wait to see how it ends, to be fair.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic, isn't it? It's there's 10 points between 17th and 8th. So I mean that's absolutely incredible, isn't it? It's brilliant. It's been a great first season so far for us covering on Talking Brazil Ball. But who knows? Maybe there will be a shock. And like you said, Galo have really let themselves down with those back-to-back league defeats, including that one to Gio and obviously the first leg loss against Flamengo. So maybe they will slip, George. Let's have a look and wait and see. But they did make the Copa Libertadores final, which I think happened since we did speak as well.
No.
So maybe did we talk about that last week?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
I think James. Just a word on Galo. If they end up losing the final deciding game on Sunday, and then losing the Libertadores, regardless of where they come in the table, which might be 10th and below, it'd have to be a massive disaster for Milito, and you've got to say he would end up, I think, getting the boot, because he would end up with no trophies and end up halfway down the division where they should have done better. So, yeah, it's a big sort of end, big few weeks for Milito, really. Hopefully they can go and get a trophy. It'd be fabulous to see them lift the Libertadores, but I think they're coming off underdogs to Fogo in that one, really.
Yeah, I think on Milito for sure, it's certainly kind of make or break for him, isn't it? And let's see how they do in that final. It's going to be a big one. Well, let's move on, George, to the other game of the week, which was my game, which was, like I said, the Derby Paulista between Corinthians and Palmeiras. And this one, obviously, as I said, had ramifications really at both ends of the table, just because Corinthians, as we know, have been locked in that battle to stave off relegation, and Palmeiras have been going toe-to-toe with Botafogo and just haven't quite been able to get over the line. And while I think Botafogo would have probably had an eye on this one and thought, that's if Palmeiras is going to drop points, it might well be that game. I think we were both still shocked to see Corinthians run out as 2-0 winners in the end. It was still, to me, Corinthians have been in really good form, but I did expect Palmeiras to come up and go obviously to their rivals, their city rivals, and do them, but they didn't. George, it was 2-0. There was 2 very good goals. Rodrigo Galo, who's been in fantastic form, with a really, really good opening goal. And then he set up Yuri Alberto on a counter-attack for the second goal. And that was right at the end of the game. That finished Palmeiras off. Or was it? I don't think it was, actually, but it was sometime in the second half. Finished Palmeiras off. And Yuri Alberto, I think, George, has been... I mean, Garo, to be fair to him, as he was probably last week, was the difference between the teams. But Yuri Alberto is really hitting form at the minute. He's really showing why there's been interest in him from Europe. He's got 9 goals in his last 11 in all competitions. He's got 5 in his last 4 in the Brasileirão. He's really coming into form at a really good time for Corinthians and just dragging them up the table. And yet, I mean, it's a real setback for Palmeiras. Abel Ferreira, as we know, has had a really up and down season. He's been prickly. He's been lashing out. He's been losing it a little bit. But he seems to have mellowed a bit. I mean, maybe he seemed to me like a man who had more or less accepted that this isn't going to be his year. He said after the game, not even Ayrton Senna could win every year. So the great F1 driver, the Brazilian, of course, who tragically crashed and died during a race, was a great champion. And he referenced that not even he could get over the line and win every year. And that to me felt like a passing over to say, well, look, this is Botafogo to lose now. And you'd have to say that is the case, to be quite fair, George. But anyway, back to the game. Like I said, it was kind of a real derby atmosphere, as we know they really often are in Brazil. And obviously, George, I referenced it at the start there. You'll have seen it. There was a pig's head to the game during the first half by the Corinthians fans. It's not scenes that you want to see. Myself, as a vegetarian, it's shocking to see really that kind of pig on the pitch. I don't know what you made of this. So the fans, the Corinthians fans, threw a pig's head. I think Rafael Veiga was taking a corner, and and they chucked it on there. I don't think it hit him or anything, but apparently Yuri Alberto, who I've been hailing his goal scoring attributes, he was spotted booting the pig's head off the pitch. So I didn't see that myself. I don't know if you did, and I just want to get your reaction to quite an unsavoury incident.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, James, as a non-meat eater, what you thought of it, but I did see the incident. I had a look at the clip, and it's not so much thrown. They do it. I don't know how far away the fans are from the pitch, but it did. It kind of just rolled onto the touch line, sorry, the byline, and Yuri Alberto just tapped it off the pitch with his boot. It was, it wasn't. It was something to note, really. I mean, I don't know. And like you said, it's not something you really want to see, is it? It's a bit, no, you don't want to see that sort of thing happening. I think they are a bit more. I don't know. You wouldn't put it this way. I don't think you'd see that sort of thing here, would you? It's. I don't know. It's very much. I don't know. It just seems quite brutal, to be fair, doesn't it? But there you go. It must have meant something to the fans or whatever. But obviously, he dealt with it quickly. I don't think anything else really was made of it. I think it's probably quite a regular thing, maybe, that happens, this sort of thing, potentially. And they just got on with the game. I
don't think it's a regular thing. I mean, like you said, it's probably. It wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't as shocking for fans in Brazil as it is for a kind of for us. But it obviously happened about 20 years ago, 25 years ago for Barcelona with Luis Figo. Figo obviously was a Barcelona hero, and he left sensationally to Real Madrid. When he came back to the Camp Nou, there was a pig's head thrown at him as well. So that there is form there, but I've never heard of it happening any other time other than that. There were other things thrown on the pitch, but just kind of cups with fluid in and lighters, that kind of thing, and that's more what we're kind of used to, even though it's never nice to see. But yeah, I don't know what the significance of it, if there is any kind of symbolic relevance, I'm not really sure. But there were 2 people detained by the police following the game in connection to it. Apparently they've been released. There was they couldn't pin anything on them. I don't think there was a guy who did actually post a video of himself with the pig's head in a bag before the game, saying that he was going to put it on the pitch, but his face was covered, so they couldn't get him. So I think they were looking for him. It wasn't let's all have a laugh about it. Yuri Alberto kicks it off the pitch and we carry on. I think it was a serious matter. It was a police matter in the end. So they were looking into it. It wasn't something that was just laughed off. And but in terms of the football match, it is. I'll answer that derby feel. I mean, anybody watching on YouTube, you can see behind the big banners that the Corinthians fans have there. They do obviously take it incredibly seriously, and given the situation that Corinthians find themselves in the table, and Palmeiras, it just all added to that kind of atmosphere throughout the game, really. And Yuri Alberto, for me, I mean, like I said, Rodrigo Garo, I think, deserves a mention for his part in it. But I think Yuri Alberto is the key man here, George. And I saw that the fans after the game were in fact apologising to him for writing him off, basically, because I think he struggled towards the start of the season. He wasn't perhaps in as good a form as he hoped, and fans were kind of writing him off as the team struggled and perhaps thinking he was already on his way out the door. And he's kind of come back and put the team on his shoulders a little bit and shown up as a real goal-scoring threat. So yeah, he spoke out after the game about how he has had a bit of a tough time mentally. He's been speaking to a therapist apparently just to improve his mental state throughout the kind of season, and it's obviously working. Something's really clicked, and yeah, Corinthians kind of march on. I think that's 3 wins in a row now for them. They're up to kind of 13th in the table. Like you said, they're only 4 points from. They're by no means out of that relegation picture, but they'll be feeling a heck of a lot better about things. And they've got Vitória next, who are actually 12, who remarkably, the 2 teams have had exactly the same results over the last 5 games. They've both lifted themselves up out of that relegation zone, and you're feeling that next one, whoever gets a win, if anybody can win that, I feel like they'll have completely put to bed any relegation worries. So, yeah, fantastic job Ramon Diaz has been doing. For Palmeiras, George, We're going to look at Botafogo next anyway, actually. So let's reserve maybe the title chat for when we cover Botafogo. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on Corinthians, and we've covered them this season because obviously they've been really underperforming. But we didn't see this one coming, did we?
No, absolutely not, James. I must admit, I was shocked when I seen it on. I think it was Monday night, wasn't it? The game. I was a bit shocked when I woke up and seen that result. To be fair, yeah. I mean, they pulled themselves up, like you said. 3 wins. I think they're unbeaten in 5 now, James, in the league. So they've really started to pull away. I think Yuri Alberto 4 is it. So I think Yuri Alberto has been key to that, like you mentioned. He didn't get his first goal, James, of Serie A season till June. He's got 9 now, and he's been in real good form, not just scoring but assisting goals as well. And he is very much the figurehead of their team, and other than Memphis Depay, but he wasn't the title man of this win. But yeah, they've really sort of quietly pulled away from the relegation zone, from trouble. I do agree with you. Whoever wins that game, Vitória against Corinthians, will probably be safe. Shout to Vitória as well. They've done really well over the last few games as well. But yeah, I hope Corinthians can build on and build on next season, because they shouldn't be sort of lower mid-table. They should be towards the Libertadores qualifications for me. So yeah, I like them. I think the manager Diaz is quietly gone about his business, and he's got them playing some good football. But ultimately, this win was, yeah, I never saw. I thought Palmeiras had beat them comfortable, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people will have done. Botafogo were playing after Palmeiras, weren't they? Was that? Yeah, they were playing.
Yeah,
they were playing after, so they
Tuesday,
knew.
I think
that was Tuesday, so they knew that if they knew the result of the Palmeiras game, which obviously does help in a title race, and they put them to the sword, George, and in doing so, they did reveal our player of the week, our player of the round, as well. Just before we reveal that player of the round, there were 1 or 2 honourable mentions, weren't there? I've already mentioned Garro, who I think would have been worthy. Perhaps he's won a really big derby with a contribution to each of the goals. And then there was Rato, Wellington Rato for Sao Paulo, who also got a goal and assist off the bench to help them to a 3-0 win over Bahia, which was important for Sao Paulo as well to pull themselves back up into that kind of Libertadores picture. But we didn't go for either of them, George, in the end. We went for a man who has been in our sights before in terms of the awards, and that's Jefferson Savarino of Botafogo. I mean, he was brilliant, I think. I mean, the goal itself is a really, really good goal. So he gets a goal and assist in the end. And he's been a key man. We talk about Yuri Alberto. I think Savarino seems to really come to the party for Botafogo as they kind of try and get on that home straight towards the title.
Yeah, definitely has. Like you said, James, he's been on our radar before. He's won awards. I think he's won Player of the Round and a Goal of the Round as well in the past. So he's no stranger to the pod. We know of him, Venezuelan international, of course. And he started this game on fire as well. Like you said, it'd be important to their sort of title push. I think now, as we predicted, like you said, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, that Botafogo will win it. I had a little bit of a rethink a few weeks ago, but I do think Botafogo will now go on to win. They've got a good cushion, 6 points cushion now to Palmeiras, 6 games to go. But Jefferson Savarino, 12 minutes, he'd already scored a goal and an assist. So fair play to him. He was definitely, the player of the round for me, and also obviously the player of the match in this one. Comfortable win over Vasco.
Yeah, it was a good volleyed goal, and then the assist was a nice little through ball, which was a really remarkable finish from Luis Enrique. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he kind of flipped it from his left foot onto his right foot, kind of in one motion, and finished it as kind of a rebound off his foot. But it was very deliberate. It was a really interesting goal, which you don't see very often. And he's another one who's really, I mean, he's a quality player, Luis Enrique. We knew he would be a difference maker at times this season, and he is another one who's coming to his own towards the back end of the season. And yeah, like you said, 12 minutes, it was already 2-0. They really blew Vasco away in that first opening exchange of the game. And this was, of course, another derby, George. Let's not forget. The both teams are from Rio. Although this one is called the Clásico de Amizade. So it's a friendship derby, apparently. The two teams are on good terms. The fans are on good terms. There's no real animosity, apparently. So, it wasn't very friendly of Botafogo to sweep in there and blast two past them in the opening minutes. But, that's the way it goes, isn't it, sometimes? Another interesting
point. They've got to win the game, haven't they? Sorry, James. Yeah,
they've got to win the game. Another interesting point about this one, which you'll like, is to do with the shirt they were wearing. I mean, Botafogo were at home, but they did have another special shirt. We looked at the special shirt that Vasco had on last week, and this time it was Botafogo's turn. So they turned the tables on them, and they had a special shirt of their own. And this was notable because it was a fourth shirt. So it was the fourth shirt they've released this season. It was a nice black one with kind of yellow accents and like a white kind of looked like kind of surf running through. It was apparently supposed to look like melted blood, whatever that really means. I mean, it was white, so, but it was a fourth shirt, and actually there was a famous game where Fogo wore their fourth shirt against Vasco in the same derby 14 years ago, and Vasco pummeled them 6-0. So Botafogo from there, they had this curse of the fourth shirt, basically, it seems like. And 14 years on, they wore. They decided it was time to end the curse. They wore another fourth shirt, and this time they did end it, and then they won 3-0. So it was a real thing. John Text, or even the owner, was commenting on it after the game, saying, it was going to be a bit of a risk or whatever. I mean, it was superstitious stuff, really. But yeah, and I wanted your thoughts on that, George. I know you like a good shirt. Did you manage to see this Botafogo fourth one? The one that they wore 14 years ago was really nice, actually. It was like a half black and grey one.
Yeah, I mean, like James, well, yeah, as well, you're a fan of your football shirts. I am as well. I like to see all these, special edition ones and these special little, like you said, little sort of, what do you call it? Yeah, superstitious kind of things. And, let's wear the fourth shirt because we did in this and we won and whatever. So I actually don't like that shirt. I think it looks... I don't know what it is, but I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's the day glow trim that I'm not a huge fan of that sort of colorway. Really, the day glow details. It just, I don't know. It looks a little bit, I don't know. It's not for me, that one, but I like the one behind you, actually, James. Corinthians. They decided to wear I think it's the third kit again. I don't know why, but they've taken to wearing that at home. I think, again, it's probably a superstitious kind of thing for them again as well. But yeah, what did you think of this kit, James?
I kind of liked it, actually. I don't know. I did quite like the yellow. I thought it kind of stood out quite nice. I think Reebok have done a nice job, and as I've been on record saying before, I think Reebok should make more shirts. But yeah, that Corinthians one, the all black one, is quite handy as well, isn't it? But yeah, that was the end of the 14-year curse anyway. So I wonder what they'll wear next time. They've broken it, so no need for wheeling it out again. Perhaps maybe it'll be a one-time thing, George. But anyway,
they might wear a fifth shirt.
Well, maybe, you never know. I mean, Vasco have had about 10, I think, this season. So, but yeah, I mean, for Fogo, just your thoughts quickly on where this leaves the time. As you said there, you think Fogo will go on to win it now. Do you see another twist, or do you think that's going to be it's going to be too tough for Palmeiras to make up that 6 points?
Yeah, I think it's going to be too tough for them, James. I'm just looking, and that crunch fixture's been postponed, hasn't it, at the end of November between Palmeiras and Fogo. So I don't know. It's you wonder. The end of November, obviously, is the Libertadores final with Galo. Do you think they'll, it could be a question of, they might put a lot of weight into that. I think they've got the squad and the quality just to move on and keep going. They're not going to put too much weight on that. I think they'll see it as another game, and they'll see the title as a real opportunity. It's an opportunity for the double, and I don't think they're going to stop and just prioritize one over the other. I think they'll have the quality to just be able to take it in the stride. And to be fair, I hope they don't, but I think they'll win the double. I do really. I think they've got the best squad in the league for me, and he's also, like I mentioned before, I think he's the best manager, and I think they deserve it really on the whole.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Arthur Jorge, if they do end up doing that, you could see him maybe heading back to Portugal, or even coming to a bigger league in Europe, perhaps, because he does seem like a proper coach. I mean, they've never won the Copa Libertadores, so that would obviously be enormous for them. They didn't win the league title for 29 years now, so again, it has the potential to be a real historic season. They've put themselves in a really, really good place. So, yeah, big week, I think, for Botafogo, and obviously a lot to look forward to for their fans. But they might be scarred still. They will be scarred from last year. So, it's either going to be a great end to the season for them, or it's going to be, the worst end of the season they've ever seen. So, let's see which way it falls. Vasco, nothing much to say on them, nothing much to worry about. They're sitting kind of quite handily in ninth. I did see Ryan being linked actually today. I wrote an article about Ryan was being linked with Liverpool. Apparently, he's in conversation with Lyon as well. Obviously, we know John Textor owns them, and Barcelona in the mix. So Ryan, we could see in Europe at some point soon. So that's one to keep an eye on. He's not really done much this season, to be quite honest, Ryan. I mean, as we move on to the Young Player Award, George, I mean, he certainly wasn't in the running for that. He hasn't really been a name that we've mentioned all that much of, besides to kind of say how little he's done really. But the Young Player of the Award this time was more straightforward, and it did go to a man who has won it, or a boy really, who has won it plenty of times before. George, he's fallen off our radar a little bit, but Coward Elias was back with a bang, back with a bullet header this week, and back scooping the Young Player of the Round award.
Yeah, I've lost count, James, to be fair, how many awards of Young Player he's won. I think he did win a goal of the Round award as well in the past as well. So he's very much on our radar. Sort of burst onto the scene a few months ago, didn't he? Like you said, he's quietened off a little bit over the last few months, but he's given us a reminder again on the weekend what he can do. Yeah, like you said, nice header from a corner. And he's very much a poacher, isn't he, really? But he's amongst Flu's top scorers. Only, John Arias has 6, and he has 6. So, as an 18-year-old, it's quite impressive, really. 2 assists as well. Again, I'm quite surprised that people aren't really talking about Coward Elias in the conversation for like a European side just as of yet, because surely he's going to start coming into somebody's thinking, because he's scoring goals. And Fluminense are obviously very much thankful for it. They've sort of steadied the ship a little bit over the last few weeks. And, it seems like they're probably home and hose, but you never do know. But it's Elias is really helping them along the way there.
Yeah, it was his first goal in 2 months, quite surprisingly. And he has been starting and playing a lot of those, really. So he did just fall off, but that's expected as a young player. And I think whatever he does, wherever he goes, I think Flu fans will probably always remember him, really. He was the one player who kind of turned up right in the middle of that battle, kind of over the summertime as they was really struggling, and he was the one player who really kind of dug them out of it. He kept getting those important goals, and this one looked like it was going to be another one, George. It was like you said, a really good header from a corner. It put them 2-1 up in this game against Grêmio, and for the second game in a row, they were undone by a silly penalty decision right in the final second of the game. You remember last week they lost to Vitoria in the end after a silly challenge from Lima. And that turned a draw into a loss. Well, this one turned 3 points into 1. Reynaldo put it away. And it seemed to lead to, again, some kind of unsavoury scenes on the kind of touchline. I mean, we're going to talk about Marcelo, of course, which was the big story from flu this week, aside from the game. But Felipe Melo as well, George. I mean, I didn't see exactly what he did, but he was sent off after the goal had gone in. He wasn't even on the pitch. And I think that's the second time he's been sent off from being off the pitch this season. So you just have to wonder, really. We've spoken about the ill discipline from flu this season. I mean, two weeks in a row, 2 penalties at the end of the game. That doesn't speak to a team who are switched on and disciplined, does it?
Not really, James. And obviously, like you said, there is discipline issues. Melo is we've seen it before. Before even he came to Fluminense, you know, he's had issues with discipline, and he seems to get involved in things that perhaps he shouldn't do. Really, we saw it earlier in the season. Did he push a photographer or somebody or somebody of the media or something like that? And I think it was the same thing, like you said. I think he was on the bench that day as well. So he just needs to calm down. I don't know what the issue is, but he just needs to calm down. I think they all do, really. I mean, it is very, very frustrating to surrender a lead with a 99th minute penalty, and the previous week with a 92nd minute penalty. It's annoying because that's 4 points essentially dropped. When you're trying to go up against, relegation, you need every single point you can get. And 3 points would have been huge. It would have taken them into it would have taken them into kind of Sudamericana qualifications, kind of above Gremio. And but as it is, they're sitting in 14th, 3 points ahead of the relegation zone. I don't even consider them as a kind of an option for relegation anymore, really. I think the games are running out now, and I think they'll get enough points, James, for them to see it out. But it's been a horrible season for them, really. And I think, like a few other teams, they'll be quite happy to see the back of this season and go on and see what they can do next time. But, a shout out to Mano Menendez as well, because he has pulled them up, as well as Elias. He has pulled them up and got them playing again after a horrendous start under Denise. So, it is frustrating, but you've just got to get on with it. Another game which it's difficult, isn't it? It's tomorrow, James. The match day starts tomorrow, and Fluminense kick it off with an away game at Inter. So it's they just keep going. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, well, Mano won a big battle really this week, because there was a really bizarre clip of him sending Marcelo on as a substitute during the Gremio game, and there was a bit of a disagreement over something. We don't know what, obviously. And it was almost immediately after the game, Fluminense put out an announcement that Marcelo's contract had been terminated. He'd left the club, basically. So obviously it's not something that's happened overnight. It must have been brewing. But the club have backed Mano, obviously, and over Marcelo, which is, quite a statement. He's not been playing every week, Marcelo, but he's a legend at the club, having won the Libertadores with them last year, and obviously came through all those years ago before he went to Europe. So Mano's won that battle, and Marcelo's out. I mean, it is a bizarre situation, isn't it, George? 6 games before the end of the season, they've just decided that's it. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see Felipe Melo go the same way, because Marcelo was out of contract in December, end of December, and Melo is the same. So Melo apparently is angling for a new deal. I don't think he's going to get one. I think those two very senior pros, I think time to cut them loose and start again. Marcelo wasn't giving much away, but he did say afterwards, the truth, like the sun, will always come out. So what do you make of this, George?
I think it's just handbags. It's silly. I mean, he's a 36-year-old man. I mean, they're just being silly. Like Felipe Melo is, I think, even older than.
He is, yeah. He's 40, I think. Felipe Melo.
I think he's a 40-year-old man and he's acting like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, he's 41. Is Felipe Melo actually? So he's a 40-year-old. Your old man is acting like that. Marcelo, handbags with his manager. I mean, can you imagine with your manager at work, if you're acting like that, it'd be disciplinary. You'd expect it. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And to me, I know they seem like a really bad influence. I know Marcelo has been a fabulous player down the years for Real Madrid, especially, obviously, and like you said, a legend at Flu. But he just seems to be a bad influence on a few of the younger players, Felipe Melo as well. It's not the way you act as a professional player, as a professional person, is it? So I think it's just ridiculous, and I agree completely with you, James. The club needs to cut them loose. Melo shouldn't get anywhere near a deal. I don't know why he wants one either, really. And just cut, like I said, cut them loose, which they have done for Marcelo. I don't think any other club will potentially touch him. He does seem to have a bit of an issue with disciplinary and bad attitude potentially. So at 36, I don't think he's going to get another club, to be fair, and he'll probably end up retiring. Who knows what's gone on between him and Manuel Menendez? But Flu do the right thing, back the coach. He's done a good job, and I don't think. I don't understand it. We saw it with Elias before. Players like Kennedy as well, who seems to be out the picture a little bit as well now. Who they're not scared to freeze these players out. I mean, he's sort of. I think he comes on off the bench occasionally, does Kennedy, but I don't think he really plays much now. He's generally on the bench, and I don't think they're not afraid to freeze these players out if they become a little bit of an issue, which is really good to see.
Yeah, there were some reports after Marcelo was let go that he was actually a bad influence on the young players. He'd been giving bad advice and this kind of stuff. But, as ever, it's, I think it was a lot of hearsay that, but I did see those reports. It's worth saying as well that Mano is out of contract at the end. I don't know if I said that, but he is as well. So it remains to be seen whether Mano himself does stay on. But I think the signs are that if he does keep them up, and that looks likely now, then he will stay on. For Gremio, they I think probably look pretty safe now as well. Obviously, it is still tight, but up in 11th, I think they've managed to stave off the threat this season as well. So, yeah, two teams who have had really tough seasons. I mean, Gremio for different reasons as well, but it looks like it's going to end with both of them back in the Brazil round next season. So let's see if we can speak more positively about them both then, George. But let's move on because the time is getting away from us as ever. Let's get on to the goal of the round. There were a few contenders for this one. We've mentioned a couple already. Garro, for me, was a really nice left-footed strike, edge of the box. Lucas Moura as well got a really nice finish into the top corner. But the two real contenders, George, were in the same game. I'll let you talk them through, even though they were for my team, Inter in their 2-0 win over Criciúma, and both of their goals were stunners, weren't they?
Yeah, they really were, James. I mean, Inter, we know, we spoke about them so much over the last few weeks, a month or so. I think it's 12 or 13 games unbeaten now, James. They're really, really going well. I think they're into fifth. They're knocking on the door for the Lib qualification. So yeah, they're marvelous. But the goals were great. I mean, it's Alan Patrick with the opener who seemed to be really hitting form at the right time, and he seems to have got quite a number of goals and assists over the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks. And it was a straight free kick. We love it on the part of straight free kick. Who doesn't like a direct free kick that goes straight in the goal? It's quite a long ranger, top corner, and he sets them on the way to you've got to say, a likely win over Criciúma. It was just before half time, but the winner of the goal around competition this time, James, I don't think there was too much quibbling about this one, too much of sort of a question of it really, was that man Wesley, who's talked up Inter's title hopes. I think he's backed down a little bit on that of recent times, but he's now on 8 goals, James. It was a great goal, this. It really was. It was, cutting in off the right side. He sort of muscled away the Criciúma defender, the left back, and then he just cut into the area. Nice little shimmy to kind of deceive the man in the box. And then in almost like the same movement, he arrowed it into the top corner. It was a great goal to win the game, to seal the game really in the 93rd minute of the match. So it was, the great goal, and for me, not really. There were some nice goals this time, but I think it was a clear winner from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually. If we'd have asked the two boys themselves, Alan Patrick and Wesley, they would have perhaps disagreed with us. I mean, there was some chat after the game. I saw Alan Patrick was talking at Wesley's goal, and Wesley actually had this to say about Alan Patrick's goal. I would have preferred to score a goal like Patrick's, as I told him, and he said the same thing to me. Each to their own, he said. So it sounds like both of the players would have preferred to score each other's goals, basically. So, Patrick preferred the kind of the individual, the solo goal that Wesley scored, and Wesley preferred the free kick. So, there was some kind of debate there, even amongst the players themselves. But from our point of view, I think, we've given it to free kicks in the past, and you want to see a bit of a different goal, perhaps. Something with that X factor, and Wesley's has got that. He beats two defenders with a bit of skill. And like you said, the finish itself was really nice anyway, back across the goalkeeper into the far corner, top corner. So, and that sealed the game for Inter. Another win. Obviously, they drew that game with Flu in midweek, which would have been a really good one to win. And it would have, with Flamengo as well, had they won that. But they stay there 2 points behind them. They're now actually 8 points clear of Bahia, who are in 7th. So you'd have to say they're looking very good for a Copa Libertadores place. And that will be, when Mercado came in, I think they were probably 13th or 14th. They did drop lower. I think that would have been the remit. That would have been, the best case scenario. And he's pulled it off. There's still a way to go for them to go even higher into that top 3. I mean, the 4 points off Flamengo, they're only 5 off Palmeiras, George. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. We could see them up in the top 2 at the end of the season. And they've got Flu next. I think Flu have got a load of injuries, suspensions, and that kind of thing. So you back them to get the points there, and with goals like these two and players like these two in really good form. For me, it's just, you say the season can't end soon enough for plenty of teams, and I'd agree with that. But for Inter, I think they'd have wished that the season had probably 6 or 7 more games to go, and they probably would fancy themselves for the title.
I would agree, James. Yeah, they really don't want it to end. I mean, 13 games unbeaten. I think they've only drawn a handful of games in that run. They've won 14 of the last 15 games. It's an incredible run. They're unbeaten in the last 14 of 15 games. So it's an incredible run of form that they've been on. And Mercado deserves all the credit. I'm sure at the end of the season we'll do kind of like manager of the season or that sort of awards. He's got to be up there in that conversation. He really, really does. He's been fantastic, and they're just being nice to each other, aren't they, James? There, really, the two lads there. But it's nice to see a little bit of harmony between in the camp, because obviously we talk about Fluminense, who have obviously just had players rip them apart, and veteran players giving bad advice to young players. It's nice to see. A team quite harmonious and just being nice, to each other. And I'd have fancied scoring that goal, but I would have preferred Wesley's goal personally. If I scored that one, I'd be playing it over and over again to the next day and then some. To be fair, because it was a really nice finish. And he was speaking on social media afterwards. Of course, he was lots of pictures of him celebrating the goal. And he just said, another special night at the Giant. We continue, +3. Let's go Inter. So, they're all building towards something. I agree, James. I think they might even finish in the top 2. The fixtures are quite favourable that they've got remaining. And, they've got Botafogo as well. So if they can take points off them, you just never know what might happen. But, fantastic end to the season for them.
Yeah, they do face Flu next as well. So those two different camps will come head to head, and we'll see who wins that one. And that is the first game of the round, George. That is actually, like you said, tomorrow evening, 10 p.m. kickoff. So why don't you run through the rest of those games? It is obviously the last round before the last international round of the season. So what do we got? We do have 10 games, so why don't you let everybody know what they are?
Yeah, again, James.
Your music.
No
There we go.
worries. So obviously the later, thing of the match day has become the match day 33 starts tomorrow. Inter face Fluminense at 10 p.m. English time. Into Saturday the 9th of November then. 12:30 a.m. over here. Palmeiras face Grêmio. Botafogo against Cuiabá and Vitória against Corinthians are both 7:30 in the evening kickoffs. Then 10 p.m. it's Gio against RB Bragantino, Cruzeiro face Criciúma, Fortaleza against Vasco, and Juventude against Bahia. Into Sunday then, 12 a.m. kickoff, Sao Paulo against PR. And then you've got a few days wait, James. Wednesday, the 13th of November, Flamengo face my side Galo. It's an 11 p.m. kickoff, and that will conclude match day 33.
Yeah, and obviously there's that cup final as well, just a few days before them, featuring the same teams. That's on Sunday the 10th as well, so they meet again just 3 days later. So could be tasty. That not loads riding on it, you'd have to say, but like we said before, if Gallo do keep slipping, then they will have one eye looking over their shoulder at the relegation places. So lots to pick from there. George, why don't you go ahead and pick your game of the round and tell us why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the fixtures now, James, and thinking, it's a little bit of a difficult one, really. There's no kind of standout ones that, you might think. We've looked at a few teams recently over recent times. I did look at Vitória maybe and Corinthians. But, there's not much there, really, is there? You know what? Because we haven't done much on them over the recent times, I'm going to go with Juventude against Bahia because we don't seem to have featured them on a game of the week for some time. It's a bit of a game that's here and there, maybe more so for the Juventude, but I think I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I agree. Juventude as well. We've not been looking at them and they've slipped right down. So, I mean, you say there's not that much on it. Juventude absolutely desperate need a win. So, Bahia as well could do with kind of resurrecting their Copa Libertadores battle. They're just about out of it, but you never know. They might still creep in. But yeah, for Juventude, that's a big game, really. So I agree. That looks like a good one. I'm going to go with Inter and Flu because I agree with you there. I don't think there's really anything that you look at and think, well, there's kind of loads on the outcome of it between two teams who are either at the bottom or the top. But Inter, I think, I like watching Inter at the minute, obviously my team, and I feel like we've given it the big build up there. It's almost, isn't it? The good lads against the bad lads, although one of the bad lads has gone. But it's also interesting to see if Flu, what goes on in that. So I'm going to pick that one just basically on the basis of there isn't really too many other options. So let's see, and then we'll have to think of something to do in the international break as well the week after.
We might look at Serie B, James. Sorry to interrupt, but I think maybe that be on the cards. I mean, Serie B is a few weeks ahead of Serie A, isn't it? And they've all played 35 games opposed to 32, most of them. So, it's on the way. It's nearly done. Is Serie A, so Serie B. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. Good call, George. Yeah, there's the top three at the minute. Look, I mean, home and hosed, almost Santos are just on the verge. Novo Horizontino and Mirassol all look to be going up. And then it's basically a shootout between really Sport Recife and Ceará, and Goiás are just about in there. So, we'll have a look more in depth in that in 2 weeks. I'm sure by then 2 or 3 of those will have already gone up. So we'll know what we're talking about by then. In the meantime, George, that's all for today, really. So why don't you just finish us up and wrap up the table?
Oh yeah, it would be a pleasure. So in first position is Botafogo on 67. Second is Palmeiras on 61. In third place is Fortaleza on 60. Fourth is Flamengo on 58. Fifth is Inter on 56. Sixth is Sao Paulo on 54. Seventh is Bahia on 46. In eighth position is Cruzeiro on 44. Ninth is Vasco on 43. 10th is Galo on 41. In 11th place is Grêmio James on 39. On 12th position is Vitória on 38 points. Also on 38 points is Corinthians in 13th. In 14th is Flu on 37. 15th is Criciúma, also on 37 points. 16th position, RB Bragantino on 35. Into relegation zone, James, 17th position, Atletico PR on 34. 18th is Juventude, also on 34 points. 19th is Cuiabá on 28. And popping up the table, as always, is GO on 25 points, James.
Yep, that's as things stand. And like you said, it all kicks off again tomorrow. And we'll be back in a shortened break this time. And like you said, the benefit of doing one later in the week is that it comes around quicker next time. So all the super fans won't have to wait long before the next fix of Talking Brazil Ball.
Well, they'll have to wait a week. They'll still have to wait a week, James. We'll still be doing it on Thursday.
Oh, is that right? All right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because the match they don't finish till Wednesday. So yeah, it's another one. It's the same as this week, really.
Yep, right. You are. Well, I got everybody excited there for nothing, didn't I? But anyway, we'll hopefully.
There's probably not that many people.
Well, yeah, all six of them. You'll anyway, there might be some more because we'll hopefully have it up on Spotify. You're going to get to work on that now, aren't you, George?
Yes, I will. Yeah.
It's say a juice, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, enjoy the week, everybody, and adieu. See you next time.
Adios.
Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Summer vibes, we're dancing in the heat. Go, go, go. Can't beat, talking Brazil ball, spreading love in every way. In the sound of paradise, we're here to stay.